It's time for Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt. Todd Marquardt, attorney at law in Texas. If you're a millionaire or a thousandaire, Talk Law Radio is now on the air. Call in with your business law question, your elder law question, veteran aid, Medicaid, build a business to get paid. 210-308-8867. Or ask a question online at marquardtlawfirm.com. That's MARQUARDT lawfirm.com. And now it's Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. On the radio, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, on podcasts everywhere, and on talklawradio.com. Today, we're going to be talking with Laura Winget-Hernandez.
Good job.
And Roberta San Antonio Salmon-Haas.
Yeah.
And
Para
Lexi
que
Law
sepan.
Dog, who you can't see. We're going to be talking about Blu House.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Shannon invited Laura. Y'all have known each other for some time, and
Yes.
Shannon believes in your mission.
Very much.
And you're going to be having an event coming up.
Not a specific event, but a change, or a development in some of our opportunities for our families.
Okay, well, let's start from the beginning.
Well,
Yeah.
Thank you. Blu House is actually considered a project of my organization, which is called Parental Solutions. We were developed to empower parents that are pursuing the hearts of their children. A long time ago, I appeared before Judge Chavita and would see dads show up and discover that they were suddenly fathers, and there was no one to help them get to know their children, give them an opportunity to bond with their children early on. And
So you're talking about unknown fathers?
Yeah, unknown fathers that are suddenly, I'm a dad. Okay, well, I want to see the baby. And the mom would say, well, you don't know what to do with the baby. And then the maternal grandma would step up and say, oh, no, he can't take care of the baby. I'll supervise. Well, the last thing you want to do is put somebody with your ex-mother, to be with your ex-mother-in-law to get to know, or not even your ex-mother-in-law. Maybe it was a one-night stand. Maybe it was just an event. But otherwise, there's this little baby.
So this is probably a Child Protective Services.
It could have been, or could it just be a child that doesn't know their father? It's a child support issue at that point.
Oh, I
Laura,
see.
you should set the scene a little bit. Like,
Sure.
what year is this? And can you kind of describe Chavarria a little bit? Because he's a force. I mean,
He absolutely is, and he was with the Attorney General. There were two courts at the time, and
San Antonio was a lot smaller. Bexar
Yes.
County was a lot smaller.
We were smaller.
So we were down there in the basement.
Yes,
From what I remember.
and the state of Texas has an amazing Attorney General, and they have a whole department that's all about collecting child support, and we probably do a better job than a lot of states in that regard. And as a young lawyer, I guess 2002, 2003, I wasn't a young lawyer. I was young at law, but not a young person. I was already 40 years old by then. And I'd go to his court, and I would just be astonished because these men are now expected to pay money to support a baby they're not allowed to get to know. Well, what's the best way to get a man to pay money? Well, let's help him fall in love with his child. Well,
Right.
tell him he doesn't get to see her, the baby, or participate. He's just sending a check to a woman that he greatly resents because now he has to be in court.
Right.
So I talked to Judge Chavita about it quite a bit, and took a while to get it going. But Blu House was born in a dream to provide a place for supervised visits for dads that didn't get to see their babies. And I still have a heart for fathers, particularly because it seems like in those situations, because moms, they get that first 9 months no matter what. And it takes dad a little while to get that time. So it's not the same now in 2025 as it was back in 2020. I mean, in 2000, when, moms were always in charge. Men have come a long ways in their access to their kids. And
Can you say Chavita's catchphrase? Is it radio appropriate, do you think?
well, I guess I'll one of my favorites is you picked her. You picked him, when they're standing up there resenting one another.
Right.
Which one are you thinking?
Yeah, that's what I remember.
yeah.
He
And-
was such a character, such a cool guy.
And, yeah,
he's still with us. I mean, he's still around. He's just not on the bench anymore.
He just said enough of that.
Yeah.
But he was a brilliant man. He's a very, very smart man, and was very playful until you were disrespectful or didn't take care of business, and then he would be fairly harsh. back in those days, we were quick to put men in jail for not paying their child support. We don't do that quite so much now as we did, and I think COVID kind of put a dent in that because it was problematic to put people in jail just for not paying money. But regardless, the dream was born, and so we now, several years later, it's been 12 years since we started our organization, we now see dads that don't know their babies, but we also help moms that are told they can't see their babies or their grown children and have to be in a supervised environment. And that's what we do at the Blu House.
So tell me more about how the dream was born, because you've said that a couple of times. Were you at a coffee shop, or were you at a bar late at night, or
literally asleep and had a dream?
Right.
There was a restaurant. What was that place? It looked like Alice in Wonderland over there on the south side.
I won't remember the name. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry that I'm not remembering it. The second it comes back to me, I'll remember.
But you were in a restaurant.
It was a tea shop, and I was there with a friend by the name of Connie Elizondo, and she was introducing me to a wonderful LPC by the name of Mary Contreras. Mary is a therapist that is highly regarded in our community. One of the things I like about Mary is, Mary will tell you real quick, she says, I could care less about grown-ups. I really don't like adults. They just don't know how to treat kids, but I love children. Mm-hmm. And she's a wonderful therapist that's all about protecting children and helping parents understand that children speak a different language. Children receive messages differently than parents do, and parents need to protect kids from the animosity that exists between grown-ups. And so Mary and Connie and I sat there, and on a piece of paper, Mary drew a picture, and my house is blue. It's actually blue. It's a bright blue, and it's at the corner of 19th and West Commerce. And she wrote down BLU, and she said, we're about building loving unions.
Oh, okay. Well, now I understand why it's spelled slightly incorrectly.
It's all about...
or not completely.
Exactly. We didn't need the E. The color speaks for itself, and so it's building loving unions. But as for how the entity began... Parental Solutions, because I was working with children in the juvenile courts, and I was also working with an organization called Hope Resource Center. It was Christian Hope Resource at the time. I was a mentor and an attorney representing children. I helped them create a program for mentoring children that were in trouble in juvie. And CHRC sent me to California to be trained in a program called the Parent Project. And the Parent Project was a very specific curriculum that was implemented in the state of California for teaching parents of children that had oppositional defiant behaviors. And so through that program, I was able to help parents understand oppositional defiant youth. It was a fairly successful program. We graduated over 146 parents, and they were sent there. Parents were required because back in that time, the law said if your kid is delinquent from school, you have to pay a $500 fine. So the judge would say, well, you can pay a $500 fine or you can go take this course. So a lot of parents came. And they discovered that if they will just sit down and communicate with their children and listen to their children and try to understand their kids better, life can change. We didn't take anybody from 0 to 180, but we did make some life changes. I had a lot of kids graduate from high school, a lot of kids not go to prison that we thought were going to go to prison. It's a life changer, and that's the whole point of what we do. I don't think that I'm going to make an imperfect person a perfect person or a parent perfect parent, but I do think with some help and the programs that we use right now, or if we can help parents find out where they've got some holes that they're willing to recognize that they have and fill those holes, they can improve their relationship with their children. So that's kind of at the core and our mission statement, where we empower parents that are in pursuit of the hearts of their children. We're not going to take over their lives. We're not going to give them the perfect menu to be perfect parents, but we're going to give them some tools that improve their situation and hopefully in the long run prevent some of the more egregious things that could happen to your kids if they lose touch with you.
Okay. Well, how do people get introduced to you?
Well, besides at this time, whether you're in the district court and you're in a divorce and a judge is saying, and one parent's blaming the other of alienation or abuse, and a judge sends them to us. We have parents that come and say, hey, I haven't seen my kid in forever. Can you help provide an environment where I can see my child? We have parents that are in CPS cases that are required to be supervised, and so they often come. There's an organization now called Belong that is the substitute or the replacement for the CPS program now in the legislature, and they are sending us children to supervise. So we have a lot of different reasons why people come. Besides the babies that I talked about early on and the fathers that don't know their children, we have people that are accused of domestic violence, and you don't want to leave them alone with their kid. You have parents that have issues with drugs. You don't want to leave them alone with their children. Sometimes it turns out that the person that's accusing is actually the person that's causing the problem. But it takes some time and some observation and some good note-keeping to be able to recognize that that's what's happening. So we have a lot of different streams of folks that get referred to us.
Okay. But the common denominator is you have to end up at the courthouse before somebody's going to know that they should be introduced to you.
I think there is a lot of courthouse involved, but I also think that there are parents that recognize that there are people that don't go to the courthouse. There really are. And they recognize that they've got problems in their relationship, and they have old AG cases, and dad shows up and he wants to see his kids. He said, well, my mom used to do that, but she's old and sick and can't do that. So where can we go? Another beautiful thing that we're able to do is, particularly with our military, folks that are stationed far away and they need to come and they are required to be supervised. We have been contacted. We have a great relationship with the state of Washington right now. We have a family that has been with us for quite some time. I've had some special needs children that are like in medical care here, and their estranged parent is far away and they need a supervised environment. So they bring their medical team to our house and we're able to supervise them. One of the special things about Blu House is that it's a house. It is a house with a living room and a dining room and a kitchen and a beautiful playground now.
I'm so glad you're mentioning that, because I wanted to ask, why are you different? Because there are other supervised facilities in town.
Thank you, Shannon. It's actually a house, and I think you've seen it. And it's actually a Blu House, and it's an old house. I loved the design and the old ideas, so I've done a lot as I can to keep the feel. One of the things that we like to do is make it so that the kids feel like they're visiting Grandma's house. We have an oven. We bake cookies. You walk in the house, it smells like you've gone to Grandma's house.
Yeah.
And you're familiar, and it's not a government building. It's not a hospital. It's a house. The only thing that's missing is Alexi.
a well-behaved dog.
A well-behaved law dog.
Yeah. How do you run this project, this Blu House? What resources do you get from the public or the government or whatever?
Unfortunately, we are not funded by any kind of government entity. We will be asking our county for some money coming up this next fall. You have to be in existence at a certain level. Our 501 has only been in existence for the last 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Actually, we're going to be having our 3rd anniversary of our 501. We were simply a charitable non-for-profit without a 501 for a long time. We were sponsored by a church for the first 10 years with Bulverde Baptist here in San Antonio.
Bulverde?
Bulverde was very helpful to us.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's pretty far away from the courthouse.
Yeah. But man, what a group of missionaries that came and helped at the Christian Hope Resource Center and helped build how we got started. So,
okay.
Yeah, God's people are everywhere.
Right.
And Bulverde has some fine ones. And we've been associated with some folks in San Antonio, but the ground was set and the foundation was begun by a group of older folks in the Bulverde Baptist Church. Very, very helpful. My grandfather actually owned 19th and Commerce, and my grandmother gifted the Blu House to me and to my mom and to I, and so to me, so that we could begin this process. My mom and dad Harvey and Rachel Jones are a critical part of the founding of Parental Solutions. Okay. And now at this time, there's a fee for parents to visit. We're very competitive with the other entities that exist. And we are now recently on a contract with Belong. So yes, that will be funded by Belong. And we're going to apply for the Child Protective Service contract as well. And we'll be funded in that fashion too. We have income sensitive. So if you have issues, if you're on Medicaid or some medical reason why you have to pay less, we're helpful in that regard too. But we're always looking for donations. Miss Shannon did a wonderful thing and helped us do a fundraiser at Chicken and Pickle. And
That was
helped us
fun.
raise some money.
That
It was a lot
of
of fun.
Yeah.
And the important thing about that was it was to make the community aware of who we are and what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Because I was wondering if you're free to share any kind of success story. I imagine it's hard to quantify whether you're successfully healing relationships. It's not something you can put on a chart or it's not a numerical value. But what in your mind is really the things when you go to bed at night, you say, wow, that really was a great success story. Are you free to share any of that?
Well, we actually do.
Is that okay? Can I ask that?
We actually do.
You approve of my question. I saw that. Yeah, you have done well, young Padawan.
We actually do. Because we are applying for grants, we have to keep those numbers. And recently, one of my supervisors did a really good job going back through my records and looking at who are we actually serving and what is the result of our service. If a person comes in and they're required to only allowed to have 1 hour of supervised visits, and then they get to have 2 or 3 hours of supervised visits. And then they get to have only supervised exchanges. And then they no longer need our services. Well, that shows that where there was a problem, and like I said originally, the problem is really between the parents and regularly not the parent-child relationship, but the animosity and the concern and the fear and the threats and all the nonsense between the parents. If we can relieve that and then let them recognize that the other parent also has a right to a relationship, then all that tension comes down. So when it was supervised, it was limited. It got expanded to more. And then it was a supervised exchange. And then it was dismissed altogether. And they figured out let dad pick the kids up from school, have his weekend, and take them back to school. Mom and dad never have to see each other, and the kids are happy as can be.
So I'm hearing the happiness for the kids, but I also heard, wow, that's another one that's not clogging up the system with just endless litigation.
And the litigation is problematic. And I started to tell you, you asked me about projects. I'm going to tell you the new process that we have right now, working with Mary Contreras. We're working on a plan to help the courts with a schedule, where if we can schedule that both the mother and the father get evaluated by the mental health expert, evaluate the relationship between each of those parents and the children and how they work together or don't work together to help build up the children, we could reduce the litigation. We could take some of those factors out. It's a mom and dad against each other problem. It's not a mother-child problem or a father-child. Don't get me wrong. There are parents that are abusive that should never be left alone with their children. There are parents with drug issues that their drugs are more important to them than their kids. And so be it. Send your check, see your kids in a supervised environment, pay your child support, go do your drugs. That's your choice.
Kids are safe. Yeah.
Kids are safe. Exactly. Kids are safe. But if your intent is to have a relationship with your child, get to know their school teacher, help them, encourage them, you might be the dad that's the craftsman, or you're the dad that's the painter, or you're the dad, or you're the mom that loves music. Feed that into your child. Let the other parent feed the art. Let the other one feed the technology, whatever. Let your child get what they get from the other parent and get out of the way and let them raise their child. And don't spend all that money on the lawyers, because $10,000 in litigation can be used for $10,000 worth of summer camp or music lessons. Get the litigation done.
I feel like saying amen.
Yeah, I do too. I just have seen men and women that hate each other so severely that the children are just collateral damage. I mean, they don't do it on purpose, making the child afraid and anxious and upset. But they're sometimes in the line of fire when they're going after their former spouse.
I think that's
exactly.
I think that's one of the key things about this program that Mary Contreras and I are working on is it's to help show the court that the issue is not the parents and it's not the kids, it's the parents, and we've got to stop that craziness because it really is costing our children.
I'm about to. Yeah, I love that. I love it so much.
One of the things I tell parents when they come, when not all the ugliness that happens between parents is a mom or dad beating at each other in front of their kids. They're sitting at their kitchen table with their girlfriend, or they're out there shooting pool with their buddy, and their kids are in earshot. And they hear you the man talking smack about the mom, or the mom talking trash about the dad. And the kid's like, when I look in the mirror, my eyes are like my mom's, my lips are like my dad's. And when my parent that hates my other parent sees me, they're seeing the parent that they hate. So what's wrong with me?
Right.
And the kids turn it on themselves. If parents would recognize that when you say something bad about the other parent, children don't know how to deflect that and say, oh, she's not talking about me, she's talking about my dad. No, my dad, that's half of who I am.
Right.
If parents could just get that, just, yes, he cheated on you. Yes, he stinks. Yes, he didn't pay the bills. But guess what? He gave you that precious child. Dad, she was a lousy housekeeper. She was no good. No, but you know what? For 9 months, she carried that baby. That's the most precious thing you have.
Well, I have a client, he says his former wife was a good housekeeper. She kept the house.
It shouldn't be funny, but it is. That's sad.
And he was never going to look for another one.
Right.
He's going to have to pay rent no matter where he is anyway. So
no, you mean another wife, not another house, right?
He didn't want to find another housekeeper.
That was a good one, Todd.
That's harsh.
You're redeemed from your other dad jokes.
Okay.
You're completely redeemed yourself.
Well, it is very sad, but that's why comedians have a job, is because you have to. If
Find
you can't
those
laugh
things
in this life, then it's hard to get through.
True.
And laughter, man, that's the best part. I do want to say, we stepped out and we bought a very, very expensive playground last year. That was where we spent our goods, and we need to expand on our playground. We are looking to raise some money because what we built is for some of our kids that are more like 6 to 16, which is a critical time. I've got kids that won't sit in a room and talk with their parents, but they will let their parent push them on the swing. They will they'll throw a basketball with that dad they're estranged from. They'll play on the playground, but they won't sit in a room and play a board game. So the playground was one of our first investments. So we're looking to build a playground for our little bitty people as well, because getting active and moving around and trusting, especially with the little bitty ones, mamas protect and daddies take risks. So letting a child learn to jump from a tall space into daddy's arms is a huge trust. Playing hide and seek behind the tree. I know people think that's silly stuff, but get some science behind you and realize that the risk taking that daddies help little people do is very, very, very healthy for their children.
But you work in close contact with a very reputable counselor.
I absolutely do. Mary Contreras, in fact, has just recently a rented space in the same building that I'm in, so she's very close by, and my building is right next door to the Blu House. So geographically, it's all very close, and it's being built, and it's getting richer and deeper, and we're meeting needs at deeper levels. One of the programs that we have is called Nurturing Parent, which is a higher level of regular supervised visits, where before the parent supervises, we have them take a self-assessment test and let them figure out what's wrong with my parenting. We coach them while they're parenting their child, and afterwards say, hey, how did you do on those things that you were concerned about? Parents are finding and fixing their own issues. It doesn't help for me to tell them what's wrong if they don't recognize what's wrong. But if a parent will say, you know what, I really did talk harsh, or I really did diss my ex in front of my kid, but I stopped myself 2 or 3 times. And I didn't call my kid that name that I used to call him to. I quit doing that too. And so we didn't change everything about him, but we did some improvement. So
love it so much.
Shannon, tell us how you found Blu House. How did you become aware, and how did you grow your love for them?
It's not a super interesting story because I've known Laura forever plus 2 days.
Okay.
So I knew that this was happening, but when I went down there and toured the facility, and I've also known that parental conflicts are ripping our community apart, that it's intensely painful for everybody involved. And there's really never a winner, and everybody's just suffering and litigation costs, and it's just a horrible situation.
How can we direct people to the Blu House to contribute, or can they email you, or
how do we help?
Can they Venmo you, or
they can go to our website, the Blu House.
BLU
BLUHOUSC.SA.org. I guess how they do that. Blu House SA.
There's no other Blue House. If you
Right.
leave
That's
the E off, it comes
It's-
up on a
it's-
Google
Okay,
search.
just search
It's the
Blue House San Antonio.
bluehousesa.org.
Will you give
That's
a
it.
tour to?
If you call us in advance, we'll make accommodation for a tour. Of course, we will do that when there's no children there.
Right.
We are very, very protective. We have a wrought iron locked gate around the whole facility. We are always locked, and you have to call us in advance if you want to take a tour. We'll make accommodation. That's probably going to happen on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday before noon.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting. I appreciate the opportunity.
We'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.
Thanks.